graduation, and thousands of dollars sent home as the price for recognition that never came. If it were you, would you stay silent and keep paying, or dare to change everything? If you feel the weight of these family stories, a gentle like or subscribe is more than enough to walk this journey with us. You sit frozen in front of your computer screen, eyes scanning the email your mother just sent. Lila's first year of graduate school cost $60,000. The family is hoping you'll contribute, since your business is doing so well. At first glance, it seems like a simple request. But to you, every word cuts like a blade, piercing through the thin armor you've built after years of sacrifice. The attached photo makes your heart ache even more. Your mother, father, and Lila, glowing with joy, champagne glasses raised high. They are celebrating, basking in one another's company. And you are nowhere to be seen. Just like always. Every milestone, every moment of family joy, there was never a place for you. Your 16th birthday rushes back like it happened yesterday. You had worked long summer hours as a cashier at a local grocery store, saving every penny for one small dream. To take your family to Alfredo's, the only Italian restaurant in the neighborhood that wasn't a chain. It wasn't about luxury, it was about love. But that morning, your mother's words cut short the celebration. Lila has a fever, honey. We'll celebrate another time. You nodded, because you always nodded. That night, you blew out a candle on a lonely grocery store cupcake, sitting in silence while the wax dripped onto the plate. Later, you opened Facebook, only to find a picture. Your family gathered around Lila, smiling, with the caption, "Family is everything." Family, perhaps, but without you. And it didn't end there. When your mother's car broke down, who paid a repair bill? You did. When your father lost his job for 3 months, who quietly covered their insurance? You did. When Lila needed summer camp, special lessons, or ballet shoes, who was always there? You. They called you the responsible one, close quote, while Lila was always the one who needed love. Over time, you began to believe it. You convinced yourself that strength meant going without, that if you gave enough, eventually the recognition would come. That someday, they would see you. But the more you gave, the more invisible you became. Even in college, the cycle never stopped. Every month, you sent money home, hundreds of dollars, while you lived on ramen and juggled multiple part-time jobs. They called it giving back. You called it the price of belonging. You didn't dare say no. Deep down, you feared that without money, your connection to the family would vanish completely. You remember your Stanford graduation vividly. 3 seats in the front row, reserved with your own hands, marked with bold signs for Mom, Dad, and Lila. Minutes before the ceremony, your phone buzzed. "Sorry, honey. Lila has a piano competition. You're strong, you'll understand." And once again, you understood. You walked across the stage alone, the applause of strangers echoing in your ears, while your heart felt hollow. When your professor adjusted your tassel and asked, your family couldn't make it. Close quote, you smiled and lied. They had something come up. The words tasted metallic on your tongue. On your desk today sits one photo. You in your graduation gown, smiling stiffly. If you look closely, 3 empty chairs sit in the front row. You've kept that photo not as a wound, but as a reminder of every sacrifice made and every absence endured. Through the years, you carried one belief. If you gave more, you would finally be seen. But the truth became clearer with every passing season. Love in your family has always come with conditions. And that condition was money. Outside your office window, the Seattle rain falls steadily, rivers of water tracing down the glass. You press your palm against the cool surface, feeling the vibrations as if the past itself is knocking. For so long, you lived like someone standing at the door, knocking endlessly, waiting for an invitation that never came. And now, as this email from your mother lands in your inbox, that same haunting question rises once more. If you were me, would you keep paying the price just to hold a place in this family, or would you finally stand up and claim your worth? Close quote, in this moment, you understand. The past cannot be rewritten, but the future still can. The decision is in your hands. And if you've ever felt invisible in your own family, if you've ever sensed you were always left at the edges while others stood in the spotlight, know this. You are not alone. Share your thoughts in the comments, because the story is not just mine. It could be yours too. And if these heartfelt family stories speak to you, a quiet like or subscribe will be enough to keep us connected on this journey, where every voice deserves to be heard. You thought you had grown used to favoritism, that you had built a shell thick enough to keep your heart from trembling every time comparisons were made. But that email asking for $60,000 was like a spark dropped onto dry tinder, igniting a wildfire that burned away every illusion you had been clinging to. In an instant, all the truths you tried to hide, all the pain you tried to bury, came rushing back with brutal clarity. You scrolled through your phone, staring at the newest family photos. There was your mother, glowing in her newly renovated kitchen, light dancing off the polished marble countertops. There was your father, beaming beside his brand new car. And there was Lila, your younger sister, posing in an expensive designer dress, her hair perfectly styled under the warm lights. Dozens of comments from relatives filled the feed. So lucky to have such a loving family. Close quote, everything looks perfect. Close quote, Lila is truly blessed. But only you knew the truth. That so-called perfection had been built on your sweat, your sacrifice, and your stolen youth. You once believed you had grown immune to favoritism, that the scars of childhood had hardened into armor. You told yourself you could handle the small slights, the subtle dismissals, the celebrations where your chair was always empty. But that email demanding $60,000 shattered the fragile balance you had maintained. It was more than numbers. It was a mirror held up to your face, reflecting every wound you had carried for years. Scrolling through your phone, you found the family photos posted just hours earlier. Your mother, radiant in her brand new kitchen, the polished marble countertops gleaming. Your father, proud and tall beside his sleek new car. And Lila, your younger sister, swirling in her designer dress, eyes sparkling under the light. Relatives and friends filled the comments. What a beautiful family. Close quote, you are so lucky to have each other. Close quote, Lila is such a star. Close quote, to them, the scene looked perfect. To you, it was a tableau built on your sacrifices. A stage lit with money you had quietly supplied, while you yourself were erased from the picture. You opened your records. Row after row of transfers, cold numbers forming a diary no one else would ever read. More than $32,000 over 8 years. Each entry more than money, it was a memory. Tuition for Lila. Repairs for the leaking roof. Insurance payments when your father was out of work. Ballet shoes, music lessons, summer camps. Even emergencies that turned out to be luxury trips. You stared at the screen until the numbers blurred, your chest tightening. Every transaction was proof that love in your family had always come with conditions. Then came the messages. You're successful now, what's 60,000 to you? Close quote, don't be selfish. Family means sharing. Sharing. You thought of nights spent surviving on ramen, juggling 3 jobs while studying. Of birthdays spent alone, blowing out candles on store-bought cupcakes. Of your college graduation, 3 seats reserved for your family that remained empty. Who shared with you then? The answer was obvious. No one. The tragedy, you realized, was not the money itself. It was the realization that you had never been seen for who you were. You were the scaffolding holding up their joy, but you were never in the frame. You were the backstage crew in a play where others basked in the spotlight you built. And then the discovery that changed everything. An email thread left open by mistake. Words that cut deeper than any blade. She owns a company now, who else will pay? Close quote, just remind her of everything we did for her when she was young. Guilt always works. In that moment, the illusion crumbled. Your sacrifices weren't cherished, they were expected. Your loyalty wasn't treasured, it was exploited. You remember the night you called home after signing your first major business contract. Your voice trembled with excitement, eager to share the news. But your mother's response was hurried. I'm setting up a party for Lila, let's talk later. The line went dead. You sat there, phone pressed to your ear, staring into silence. You didn't need applause. You just wanted to be heard. But even that was too much to ask. Another time, you withheld money, just once, to see what would happen. The reaction was swift and merciless. Phone calls at all hours. Emails loaded with guilt. Do you know how disappointed Lila will be? Close quote, do you realize what will happen to this family without your support? Close quote, every word tightened like a chain, turning love into leverage. In the glow of your phone screen, you realized the truth. The family you were born into had become a prison without walls. Rain fell steadily outside your Seattle window, a rhythm as relentless as your thoughts. Droplets slid down the glass like years wasted in silence. Have I spent my life buying scraps of affection? Close quote, you asked yourself. Will I ever know love without conditions? Close quote, the questions echoed louder than the storm, robbing you of rest. You turned toward the portraits on your wall. Smiles beamed from your parents. Joy radiated from Lila. But your own face, faint, often missing altogether. You were never the star in their story. You were always backstage steadying the ropes, setting the lights while others bowed before the applause. One memory rose above the rest. Your 16th birthday. You were saved for weeks, working at a grocery store, dreaming of treating your family to dinner at the only Italian restaurant in town. That morning, your mother said Lila was sick. We'll celebrate another time. That night, you blew out a candle on a single cupcake. Later, you saw photos of your family smiling at home, gathered around Lila. The caption read, "Family is everything." Family, yes. Just not for you. The truth was undeniable now. Your tragedy was not financial. Your tragedy was chasing love where it had never been offered. You had bartered away your youth in hopes of recognition, only to be met with silence. That request for $60,000 was not a plea. It was a verdict. Unless you changed, the cycle would continue forever. You sat before the mirror, eyes locked on your reflection. You saw the exhaustion etched into your face, but behind it a flicker of something else. A light. The light of truth. You whispered, "If you were me, would you keep paying for a seat at their table? Or would you finally build your own?" Close quote. And perhaps, as you hear this, you feel your own story echo in mine. Perhaps you too have been excluded, overlooked, reduced to a shadow in the very family that should have embraced you. If so, know this. You are not alone. Share your truth, because sometimes the strength to move forward comes from realizing we are walking the same road. And if these raw, unfiltered family stories have resonated with you, consider leaving a like or subscribe. Not for me, but for us, for a community where every voice matters, where silence is broken, where pain is acknowledged, and where each of us is reminded, love should never come with conditions. You sit quietly in the dark room, the rain tapping against the window like a reminder that time is running out. Inside you, a storm rages even stronger than the one outside. For years, you chose silence. You accepted the role of the responsible child, close quote, believing that sacrifice was the price of belonging. But that email, with its cold demand for $60,000, ripped away the final veil. You realized, if you continue down this path, you will lose yourself completely. You remember the countless times you wanted to ask, "What about me? What about my feelings?" Close quote. But every time the words rose in your throat, they dissolved before they reached your lips. You swallowed them back, pressing them deep into your chest. That night, something inside you shifted. You opened your laptop, fingers hovering above a keyboard as your heart pounded. You had written so many things before, work emails, reports, notes, but never something like this. This wasn't a document for others. This was for you. You began to write a letter. It wasn't filled with accusations, though you carried enough hurt to fill pages. It was filled with boundaries. Quiet, firm lines drawn in the sand. You wrote about your 16th birthday, when you sat at the kitchen table with a single cupcake, blowing out a candle alone, while laughter echoed from the other room. You wrote about your graduation day, when 3 empty chairs sat like ghosts in the front row, each one a silent reminder that you were not worth their time. You wrote about the years of money transfers, tuition, rent, emergencies that were always accepted but never acknowledged, each transaction met with silence, as if your sacrifices were a given, not a gift. And then, after years of holding it inside, you finally wrote the words that had weighed so heavily on your chest. "From today, I will no longer buy affection with money. If you need me, see me as a person, not as a wallet." Your hand trembled when you reached for the mouse. The cursor hovered over the send button, and you hesitated. A part of you still longed to delete the letter, to retreat into silence, to preserve the fragile illusion of peace. But another part, the part that had been silenced for years, refused to back down. With a deep breath, you clicked. Fear and relief flooded you at once, your heart beat loud as a drum. Fear that your family would turn away forever. Relief that, for the first time, your truth had been spoken. The next morning, the storm began. The phone calls started before you even left for work. Your mother's voice cracked with disbelief. "You've changed, how could you write something like that? We never abandoned you." Her words were heavy with guilt and denial, but underneath, you recognized the familiar tone of someone trying to pull you back into silence. Your father said little, only letting out a long, tired sigh that seemed to carry years of avoidance. Lila's message came later, short and sharp. "You've embarrassed me in front of my friends." You read the words, and your chest tightened with pain. Every sentence was another reminder that they didn't understand, perhaps didn't want to understand. Yet, beneath the ache, something else stirred inside you, something fragile but powerful. Freedom. For the first time, you had chosen yourself. For the first time, you were no longer begging for recognition like a starving child waiting for scraps. The days that followed were anything but easy. Relatives whispered online, their comments echoing through the digital void. A child who forgets their roots has nothing to be proud of. Others messaged you directly, their words dripping with judgment. Everyone says you are selfish. Each accusation stung, but not as deeply as it once would have. Because this time, you knew the truth. Selfishness was not choosing yourself. Selfishness had been demanded of you for years, others expecting you to give everything and ask for nothing. And then, just when you thought you were utterly alone, an unexpected message arrived. It was from a distant aunt, someone you rarely spoke to. Her words were simple, but they pierced your heart. "I understand. I lived my whole life trying to earn love through sacrifice, and by the time I realized it, I had nothing left. Don't make the same mistake." You froze, staring at the screen as tears blurred your vision. For the first time, you felt seen. Truly seen. You were not an exception, not some anomaly cursed with this fate. There were countless others like you, carrying similar wounds and silenced children who had been overlooked, taken for granted, used as pillars for families who never truly saw them. You were not alone. That night, you opened a journal and began to write. At first, the pages were filled with rage and grief, your handwriting jagged, the ink smudged by tears. You wrote until your wrist ached, until your body shook with the force of everything you had buried. But slowly, as the nights passed, the writing began to change. The anger softened. The grief turned into reflection. Through the pain, something new emerged. You realized that tragedy, as devastating as it was, did not have to be the end. It could be a beginning. You discovered that only by facing the raw truth, ugly, painful, undeniable, could you hope to change it. Only by acknowledging the weight you had carried could you finally set it down. And in that quiet moment, pen in hand, you felt the faint stirrings of something you had not felt in years. Hope. One morning, you stood before the mirror. The reflection still showed a tired face, but in your eyes there was something different: resolve. You whispered, "I will not buy love anymore. I will build a life of my own." You began saving money for yourself. Instead of wiring it away in silence, you invested in your own future, unfinished dreams, trips you had always longed for, classes that made your heart come alive again. You surrounded yourself with people who listened, who valued you not for what you gave, but for who you were. As months passed, you realized the pain didn't vanish overnight. The wounds from your family still ached, especially on quiet nights when you looked at old photos. But slowly, the pain transformed. It became strength. You no longer tortured yourself with the question, "Why don't they love me?" Close quote. Instead, you asked, "How can I love myself better?" Close quote. One afternoon, walking through the park, you saw a young family laughing together. The father pushed a stroller, the mother smiled warmly, the child babbled joyfully. You couldn't help but smile. In that moment, you realized you could build a family of your own. A family not built on conditions, not measured by money, but grounded in respect and genuine love. Yes, there will still be nights when you ache at the memories, when the sight of your old family photos makes your chest tighten. But now, you are strong enough to say, "I am no longer there. I have stepped out." And as you share this story, you wonder, perhaps the person listening right now has lived through something similar. Perhaps you too have been left behind, overlooked, or made invisible in the very family that was supposed to hold you close. If so, let this be your reminder. You are not alone. Your story matters. Your pain is real. And your courage to change can be the first step toward healing. If these raw, unfiltered family stories resonate with you, consider leaving a like or subscribe. Not for me, but for us, for the space we are building together. A space where every story is heard, where every wound is acknowledged, and where every person is reminded you deserve love without conditions. After the letter and the storm that followed, you stepped into a different chapter of your life. It was no longer just about anger, nor the fleeting taste of freedom. It became something deeper. A journey of rediscovering yourself after years of being buried under expectations and obligations. You began with the smallest of steps. Each morning, instead of rushing headlong into work, you brewed yourself a cup of coffee and sat by the window. For the first time in years, you allowed your mind some space to breathe. You opened a notebook and wrote questions you had never dared to ask. What do I truly like? What makes me happy? Close quote. They seemed like simple questions, yet for you, they were like light pouring into a room that had been locked for too long. You realized that for most of your life, you had lived as someone else's shadow. Your success was not yours, it existed to please your parents. Your sacrifices did not nurture love, they only fueled more demands. And in that realization, you felt something break free. You began reclaiming abandoned passions. One afternoon, you pulled out the old guitar from storage. Your fingers brushed across the strings, the sound clumsy and uneven, yet your heart stirred. You remembered how you once loved music, how you dreamed of performing on a stage, a dream silenced because your sister needed music lessons more. Now, when you played, it was not to prove anything. It was simply to remind yourself that you were still alive. Late at night, you wrote. Not just diary entries, but small stories, sometimes memories, sometimes imagination. The pages carried your pain, but they also glimmered with hope. Writing was no longer just a release. It became evidence that you had lived, felt, and fought. As time passed, you began meeting new people. Not relatives who branded you as the responsible one, close quote, but friends who resonated with your journey. In one conversation, someone said, "Family isn't always blood. Sometimes family is made of the people who truly see you." The words landed in your heart like the truth you had searched for all your life. Slowly, you started building a family of your own making. It wasn't bound by obligation, but by choice. A few friends gathered around simple meals, evenings spent under warm lights telling stories, laughter filling the air. No one demanded you pay for belonging. No one measured your worth in money. Only presence. Only sincerity. only laughter. One evening, you came home and noticed an old family photo on the table. Everyone was smiling brightly except you. You stood at the edge, your face distant, out of place. This time, your heart didn't take the way it once did. Instead, you smiled softly. You knew the person in that photo was no longer you. That version had walked through sorrow and emerged as someone new, stronger, freer. You also learned how to forgive. Not to forget, but to free yourself. You forgave your parents for the limitations they couldn't overcome. You forgave Lila for the selfishness of youth. And most importantly, you forgave yourself for staying silent so long, for abandoning your own needs. Forgiveness didn't erase the scars, but it made the path forward lighter. There were nights when dreams still carried you back to the old house. You heard laughter echoing from the living room, but when you stepped inside, you found yourself alone on the doorstep. You woke with tears on your face. Yet unlike before, this time you understood. It was only a dream, not your reality. And you had the power to write another dream, another life. You began to imagine your future differently. Not as how can I make my family see me, close quote, but as how can I live true to myself, close quote. You envisioned building a new home, one where love was unconditional, where no one was left behind, where presence was enough. One afternoon, sitting in a cafe, you watched young people laughing together. Warmth spread through your chest. You realized happiness didn't have to come from clinging to a broken family. Happiness could come from building something new, something real, something where you truly belonged. Your story is not finished. Healing is not a single event but a long journey. But every day, as you take one step further from the shadows, you know you are no longer trapped. The light ahead may not yet blaze, but it glows brightly enough to guide your way. And maybe, as you listen to this, you ask yourself, could I stand up once, to protect myself? Close quote. If that question has stirred in your heart, then perhaps you too are standing before the same door, the door of change. Your journey doesn't end here. The wounds from your family won't disappear overnight, but step by step, you've learned how to transform them into strength. You've learned how to love yourself, how to seek relationships that truly nourish your soul, and most importantly, you've discovered that your worth never needs to be paid for with silence or sacrifice. One day, when you look back, you'll see it clearly. The very pain that once threatened to drown you became the anchor that kept you steady. The moments you were forgotten taught you